Welcome to the From the 108 podcast, starring the drunk uncles of White Sox Twitter. He's a Twitter-like whore, an Instagram thirst trap, and your grandma's guilty pleasure. Beef loaf. A West Coast attitude in a decidedly Midwest body, My Sock Summer. And your host. He's sharing obscure music thoughts to give you time to hit the bathroom. Teresa E.
Thank you, Cornsey. Welcome to the From the 108 podcast. Get ready for some baseball, beer, and bullshit. And remember the drinking rules. If Beefloaf says allegedly or tries to trade for Eugenio Suarez, you drink.
Yes.
If Alex Rude wants to trade Jimmy Lambert, you drink. And if I fuck up the intro or try to trade for an old injured outfielder, you drink. And of course, you can make all of us drink for a tip of $1.08 or more. But speaking of drinking, Beefloaf, what are you drinking?
Baby, it's Pilot Project Brewing until we die. It's
oh my God. I'm right there with you.
Same thing. You got it. Courtesy Copenhagen. This is a good beer, and I will miss it when it's all gone. I don't have a lot of it left, Treasy. I think you have more than I do. I've been drinking those hazies. Well, I realized I got one more case in the back, so
I'm gonna bring some down. I'm gonna bring some down this weekend for our weekend of baseball that we're gonna have.
Lovely.
And then I'll probably, maybe bring a case over to the Bums tailgate and drop it off over there too.
Attaboy.
Everybody deserves to drink this. It's delicious. We get this out to everybody. And Project Pilot Brew is so good. We were at Timothy O'Toole's the other night. I was drinking it there too.
Were you really?
Not the courtesy of Copenhagen. They make one specifically for Timothy O'Toole's. So that was a pretty. It was good. It was a nice ale. I had just enough of them. To be perfectly.
Yeah, I was gonna say I didn't get drunk. I had I felt perfectly decent having a brewski or two over
I
there
think
and doing a
the
live
first
show.
two beers I had, I just sweat out completely.
There's
just
no
from
question.
like moving all the gear, getting it set up and all that. So I was on a -2 beer run there. So I was pretty good.
Teresa, how do you feel? Like we did that live show, and I'm sure we'll talk about it at some point later on. But
that was gonna be was one of the things I was gonna talk about in banter. So let's just get into it. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. So I was gonna say this is the second live show in a row where we stood. Because we stood at the Ramova. We were standing the entire time. We stood this time. We looked like stand-up comedians or maybe like the Temptations. Me, you, and White Sox Dave, just dancing a little bit. Do you feel more comfortable standing than sitting on these shows?
I like it in the live setting. I like standing better than sitting. Okay. I think that one, it just shows a little bit more energy. And two, I think it helps the pacing. The pacing goes quicker. If you are standing. I feel like if you're sitting, you start to get into like these longer conversations, and like that's not a good live audience in person kind of feel. Like you're not there for
bang,
that.
bang, bang.
You gotta go fast.
Yeah.
You gotta go fast because like right now, there's probably people watching us live on the YouTubes, and they're probably sitting nice comfortable couch. They don't got a lot else going on. There's not other people floating around, filling the room. You're at a bar, man. Like. The TV take your attention away. The young lady that just walked by take your attention away. Like we got to keep the attention really focused. So I think I feel like in this we could go a little bit more long form, right? We could go a little bit diving deeper because people are a little more committed into this moment than at a bar. Bar's tough.
Yeah,
bar's tough.
Yeah, there's no question.
And I can't see anyone's eyes glaze over when I'm talking too long on this, right? But I could see it in person. I don't want to see that.
Teresa, I was thinking about that too. It's like, it used to crush me when you look out in the live audience and people are looking at their phone and they're not paying attention or whatever. Now it doesn't affect me at all anymore. I'm like, this is just going to happen sometimes. You're going to see people that don't give a fuck. They're 10 feet from you and they're like, this act is killing me. I can't stand up. I'm fucking looking the other way. Fine. And I've gotten over it. For me personally, I'm just like, I'm just going to keep going and doing the best I can.
For me, I've played in punk bands for long enough that I'm used to that. I'm very much. I've played a show where the fucking only people in the crowd were the other bands, and they walked out. That's when you feel blessed. Yeah. You feel truly blessed in that moment. Let's get a drink here. We got one from from our guy Joe Latham. He says, "Do you think Biden dropping out is the smart move?" I thought this said dropping acid is the smart move at first, and I was like, "Yes, definitely." I don't know. I don't know about that kind of stuff. All I know is, I wanted to talk about this too, Beef.
Yeah.
That let me get this drink real quick.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's have one.
Cheers, Joe.
Thank you, Joe.
On the other side, they got this JD Vance guy in now, right? And I see this story, these tweets start coming out that the guy fucked the couch, right?
Yeah.
And like the sweetest part of this whole thing is that like the Associated Press had to put out like a story like, no, that guy didn't fuck a couch, which is better than anything. I just really enjoyed that. But like, it's one of those things that no matter what anyone tells me now, even though the Associated Press wrote an article with very detailed reasoning behind it, and it was absolutely fact-checked and correct, I'm just going to believe it. I'm just going to believe that the guy fucked the couch. Just like I still believe the Ricky Henderson, John Olerud story, which people have said, no, that's
bullshit.
That's a bullshit story. But I believe it. I want it to be real. So like I'm like the guy on the X-Files. I want to believe.
Who was out there claiming this? Was it Rick James saying he fucked someone's couch? What the hell was going on with this guy?
I think it was just
how did this come up? Like
it was like some dude tweet. It was a well-written misinformation tweet because he was like, yeah, in his book and put the pages. He said this about fucking a couch, and like you could read those pages. There is nothing about that. It is not even on topic in that moment. But people saw the pages because this is Beef. We had this conversation the other day, so people were like, "Oh yeah, it's true." So then real sources were like copying it and going like, this guy fucked his couch, and then you're just like, well, if that guy said it, then it's probably real. It was like that video I was telling you about where the guy. He was in a class and his teacher said, hey, you got to really research your materials because you can't just go to Wikipedia because some guy could go on Wikipedia and say he invented the toaster. And you don't know that he didn't invent the toaster. And so this motherfucker heard that in class and was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go on Wikipedia, say I invented the toaster. And he was out there for like 10 years as the inventor of the toaster.
God bless.
And he was up, like his name, which he used his real name to say it was him.
Oh, you got to. I mean, what the heck? What's the use of a fake name in that spot, Teresa?
His real name and likeness were up on the list for possible additions to the 50-pound British note. So, like...
That's totally made up.
This close to just a totally bullshit guy being on the 50-pound note. Like... That's the kind of stuff that I really enjoy. So,
Dan, I mean, to double back here, I answered Joe's question about Biden. Is it a smart move for him to drop out? I mean, for him, I think it is. I think, he should enjoy his remaining years left. Being president's a stressful ass fucking job. He seems like kind of a goof. He'd probably have a good time just fucking around and not worrying about, whether he has to hit a nuke or some bullshit. So for him, I think it could work,
I just want to imagine that dude going into retirement, him and his fucking dog sitting there, and like him just in a rocking chair on his porch, the dog running off, biting every person that goes by, and him just like kind of laughing and going, "Oh yeah," just like shaking his head. That's what he does. Like I want that for him. He deserves it.
Now there was a fake tweet of that out there too. He said, "In the last 6 months of my presidency, I'm going to let Major bite whoever the fuck he wants." As if he wasn't already. He had a dozen bites in the first 9 months or whatever it was.
The internet's undefeated. We got one from Senor Sox. He says, Kamala's 108 thick and also wood. That's shocking, Senor.
I could never suspected that. Thank you, Senor.
The guy with 26 kids would fuck. I can't believe it.
Incredible.
All right. Beef, how you doing tonight, man?
I'm good. I put this out on the intranets. I've seen The Godfather 50,000 times, but I had never ingested the book. So I decided I had an Audible credit freely available. So I said, I'm going to get Mario Puzo's The Godfather. And Teresa, I'm about a third to a halfway through the book right now. And I got 3 things that really surprised me. Differences from the movie, the perspective of the movie, and then the book, which is kind of shocking me that was in there. Number one, there is substantial graphic discussion about Santino's crank. And I'm talking, Treasy, 15 fucking minutes in total worth of talking about this man's penis in this story.
This does not surprise me, only because back in the day, Mad Max told us this. Because there's the scene where they do like...
Yeah, that's at the wedding.
And like,
that's right.
You kind of know what they're talking about, but he's like, oh yeah, man, they're talking about Santino, man. In the book, he'd be swanging. And I was like, all right.
Yeah, I mean,
I didn't know that there was as much about it in there as you're describing, but it's pretty impressive.
When they talk about, they give you like the description of the person. They talk and they go to his penis at some point during his like description of him. They don't do that for the other ones. They don't talk. Oh, this one's medium.
They don't
this
go
one's
through every
cooked right. No, they don't go through everyone's cock. They only go through Santino's as they talk about it. And Tracy, they do that section where they talk about it. Then they double back to it a little bit later and talk about how when they go to the whorehouse, he'd have to pay double. It was so big, and he would have to pay double on that. Thirdly, you remember the scene in the movie where he bangs the bridesmaid. It's actually the maid of honor, according to the book. It's a passionate scene. They go in great detail about this scene, giving a full fucking play-by-play from her perspective, catching the enormous unit. I mean, I was like one of those trashy novels that you get at the Jewels at the checkout counter. That was like what I'm listening to. I'm like, what the hell am I listening to walking around downtown? I was like, there's so much. And someone had tweeted at me. A couple people tweeted at me. It's like, oh, wait till you hear about Santino's unit. I was not expecting that much of it. Like in the first hour, I shit you not, there's 15 minutes worth about his cock.
So you're walking around downtown listening to this, and you're walking around like Ron Burgundy, going, oh, it's the pleats in the pants. It's the pleats.
Exactly. Absolutely incredible. Number two, Johnny Fontaine, Treasy, was a much bigger piece of shit than they let on in the movie. Okay. They made him, he's Hollywood, and my voice is weak and all that stuff. And the director has it against me because I slept with one of his proteges or whatever. They get into the fact that his former guy he used to sing with, it was the guy running the band at the wedding, at Connie's wedding. He was supposed to, once he got famous, he was supposed to hook the guy up and get the guy some clubs. Never fucking did that shit. He was married and he had kids and everything. He left them for some Hollywood starlet, just was like, the hell with them or whatever. The Hollywood starlet ends up being a huge whore. And like the initial scene when they bring him in, Treasy, he's drunk. He's like nervous, slugging down booze or waiting for her to come home. It's like 4 a.m. She finally walks through the door. He asks her, what were you doing out till 4 a.m.? And she tells him, fucking. That's the way you're introduced to Johnny Fontaine, right? And
At least she's honest. The
other part is, too, the Don, he gives him way more shit. That, like, you see in the movie, he cracks him and says you can act like a man. And that is in there, too. But leading up to that, he gives him so much shit about all these things that he's done. And like, hey, you haven't been taking care of your shit. Why should I do you another favor if here's all you're doing? And then they had a falling out before then, too. And then this was like where they were kind of getting back together as like, okay, we're friendly again. So I just thought it was funny that in the movie, they play him as like this nice character and he's doing... But he was a fucking asshole, apparently, man. He was like a big asshole. And they played it that way in the book. I was like, oh, this is much different. I like this approach here.
Who knew there was so much fucking in the mob story? It's wonderful.
Well, and I'll get to the non-fucking character that I feel like got a raw deal in the other direction, Treasy, is Fredo. Okay, in the book, Fredo is not made out to be the huge loser. He's made out to be immediately in The Godfather, right? He's like the loser kid. And really, in the book, they talk more about how he was considered tough and a good guy and everything. He was just quieter. He didn't have the leadership skills that Sonny did. And they talk about, too, how Sonny made his bones when he was like 19, and he was really well respected by the other capos, like because he had fought in the previous like family's war and all this shit. And so like Sonny's thing wasn't nepotism. He was like, he had gone out there and fucking done his shit and made his shit. And that Fredo was totally fine. He just wasn't like a quick riser in their thing. And he wasn't like, they make him out to be like such a patsy in the movie, just like such a fuck up and all this stuff, And even in the part where the Don gets shot, you know, they talk about how Fredo was in shock and didn't get his weapon out, you know, and then even afterwards he was being medicated because he was in shock, and the other guys were shocked by this because they're like, oh, he's a tough guy. How is he so shocked from seeing this? But I guess you see your dad shot. It's, you know, it is tough on you. So I thought, man, in a way, I like how Francis Ford Coppola went with Fredo, because it's like such a meme now and a character. But in the book, he's not, he's not as big a pussy as they make him out to be in the movie.
Yeah, I like him as the big pussy better. I like Vegas Fredo. I like Vegas. That's
I haven't gotten to that part.
I'm here for Vegas Fredo. All right, Beef. It's probably time to pay some bills there.
Let's do it.
Change is good, and at Lawrence's Fish and Shrimp, change is happening this month. First up, all 4 locations will be getting sandwiches on the menu. Choose between hot honey chicken or a perch sandwich. They've upgraded the bun and went from chicken strips to a patty. Make it a combo for only $5 more. And starting July 18th, plant-based shrimp is coming to Lawrence's. Created and produced in Chicago, Shockin' Shrimp is 100% plant-based, breaded shrimp that looks and tastes like the real thing. Shockin' Shrimp is made from the root vegetable konjac, a starchy tube-like plant rich in fiber. It contains no soy, no nuts, no dairy, and no GMO products. So stop by one of our 4 locations today or visit our website at chicagoshrimp.com to place an order for your pickup or delivery. Come see why Lawrence's Fish and Shrimp has been serving up the seafood you crave since 1950.
All right. With MSS on vacation, we didn't get a graphic, so I'm going to use this one for our guest. So he's one of our favorite guys in White Sox Twitter, and a guy that we just like talking baseball with in general, but he's always got some great thoughts. And what we wanted to do tonight was bring him on right before the trade deadline, talk kind of all things White Sox, but specifically dig into some of the trade stuff. Welcome to the show, Alex Rude. What's up, man?
What's up, fellas?
Yes,
You're
Alex.
previewing the deadline.
That's right, yeah. I still can't believe Santino's huge crank, guys. I'm sorry. It's been on my mind since I heard. I apologize.
Could you imagine what it could do to a couch?
I could not.
Well, let's get into it. And Beef, I know you wanted to talk a little bit about let's get started with Nick Senzel, who, you know, is not a trade deadline piece, but he's someone that the Sox just picked up. And talk a little bit about the possibilities of getting lucky with someone like Nick Senzel. Not necessarily him, but the idea of you're picking up a former prospect that's kind of fallen on hard times over and over, and here he is. Beef, I'll kick it to you.
Yeah, so I put this tweet out there the other day, and it was about Nick Senzel. It's just like the thought process of the White Sox always picking up the leftovers from the prior prospect lists. They had a bunch of 2017 top 100s in the house. Last year at the end of the season, none of them really turned into anything. You know, the Brent Honeywells and Davey Garcias and those of ilk. And I was making this same mention of Nick Senzel, and that I don't expect much out of this. And then Alex was gonna MF me on this. What I got wrong here, Alex? What did I screw up here?
Isn't Eric Fetty a former failed prospect too? So like.
He is, but he did have some success somewhere. So, like the career thing is not a nothing, in my personal opinion. It is some success. A lot of these guys you're trying to pick up, and there's been no line of like, okay, they were good for a half season or whatever, is I think is what I've been thinking mostly. And it's just, well, if they failed in 3 other places, guess what they're probably going to do here? You know, I don't understand the post hype on the 4th team pickup guys or 3rd team pickup guys. I'm just not a fan.
In the same vein, Paul DeYoung failed in 2 different places last year and has been pretty successful this year too.
That's true, but he had a career before that. You know, he had been good somewhere else for a while actually before that. So I don't think they're the same, but I hear what you're saying.
I think one of the big things for Paul DeYoung that's making him better this year is how terrible the rest of the team is. So that we're not paying attention to how shitty his on-base percentage is. And it's like, okay, you've got 17 home runs, but you only have 19 hits. Like this is
all it's midget.
I mean, but 17 home runs at short's not nothing. You know, it's a little something.
No. And I think we'll probably mention DeYoung later as we get into like possible guys that might get traded. I will say, though, on the Senzel thing, there is some thought to like, have all the teams used him properly, knowing what you know now? Like, obviously, the Reds are going to try and get the most out of him. They picked him high. They're going to try and do something important with him. But as like you see more and more what Nick Senzel is, like he can hit lefties okay, and he could play a few positions. So like, is he a reasonable right-handed bench bat? I don't know. But like that's what you got to start looking at some of these guys and doing. I think a guy that would interest me, like who's scrap heap right now, is a guy like, and I think the Sox should do more of this with the shitty team that they have, is like a guy like Ty France, right? Like, I would not hate if they cut Eloy Jimenez and picked up Ty France and said, you're getting those at bats. Because just recently, France had, 120, 130 OPS plus, right? And so it's not that far removed. And it's like, I would rather try that. But there's tons of guys like that every year. I mean, earlier in the season and like to a lesser extent, JD Davis was a guy who just became available.
Your guy.
And it's like, but I think he's become available multiple times this year. I think, but like,
you were kneeling on your bed praying that the White Sox would pick up a JD Davis.
It's like you have no hitters. You have no hitters on your team. They're just sitting on the curb. Like luckily they picked up Tommy Pham. Right. Because that was another one that was just like sitting there, and it's just like they should do more. They should churn more guys. There's plenty of guys to just cut. But Beef, so you wrote the tweet about Nick Senzel, but then you also wrote a blog referencing a Joe Sheehan article. Why don't you give us a little background on that?
It's from Joe Sheehan. I really, it's a kind of a question here for Alex. So I wrote a blog because Joe Sheehan talked about in his newsletter, sometimes the trade deadline isn't poker. It's craps, just putting yourself in position to catch a hot streak in a negative EV game. And you've seen a lot of this lately where teams are just like, well, fuck it. I'll take the guy that was semi-decent, doesn't cost a lot. I'm just going to throw a bunch of these guys at the wall. The most famous example is the 2021 Braves, who just grabbed like 4 outfielders when they were had nothing going on in the outfield. Got a couple to stick, Eddie Rosario and I think it was Jorge Soler. And they absolutely crushed in the playoffs. So my question for you, Alex, is how could this potentially help the White Sox trade market if teams are employing the strategy of, hey, just give me a guy and it's cheap and I'm just going to throw it up my roster?
Oh, yeah. Taking a step back, when you think about the negative EV analogy that he made, I actually really like that, especially when you come to like buying at the trade deadline, because in the long run, just like with playing craps, you're more likely to lose than anything in the long run. Like when making trades, especially when buying, you're more likely to lose those trades than win those trades. Even the best GMs that will make trades that look bad in hindsight, Dodgers GM Andrew Friedman, considered like the best GM in the game, but he's also traded away Yordan Alvarez and O'Neal Cruz in trades to buy. AJ Preller, I believe the count of all-stars he's traded away is like 12 plus at this point. And all he is remembered for is the Tatis trade. So like he says in there, it's like setting yourself up to get a hot streak, because the hot streaks are going to be what people remember. So you can have a varying degrees of strategies, whether it's like the Braves, going for multiple bites at the apple, multiple fourth outfielders, or even the Padres all in trying to acquire a guy like Robert or Crochet. The White Sox can benefit because they can appeal to both. They have guys that can appeal to teams on both strategies. So luckily, they're in a spot that they could be the ones that are winning in the buying.
Yeah, I totally agree. That I love that analogy there, Alex.
That Preller thing is crazy. Because I was just telling Beef before the show, I was watching I think it was Baseball America, like I think it was the hot sheet, and they had a graphic up of since 2015, like 499 prospects have been traded, and only 31 of them have become MLB All-Stars. So like nearly half of them came from Preller.
You have the list. Trey Turner, Josh Naylor, Emmanuel Clase, Brett Rooker, CJ Abrams, Yasmani Grandal, Max Friese, Luis Castillo, David Bednar, Ty France, and now Andres Munoz.
It's a wild list.
That's fucking crazy. That's crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Quick drink here from Modelon. He says, the team we all love may suck, but Beef, Miércoles, MSS, and the 108 crew at least make it fun. Fuck Pedro. Here's the fuck Pedro.
Cheers, Modelon. Thank you, my friend.
and we probably got to show this one. It says Alex Rude graded on MSS. No comment. No comment. We're just.
I saw a lot of people butthurt MSS was on here, and equal amount of people saying replace MSS permanently with Alex Rude. So you know what? I have no take on this, but the internet will speak.
Well, I think that means that Alex and MSS need to do a show together. Just one-on-one.
4 hours. 4 hours straight live stream. That's right. It's a cage match. You can't get out. Like, you gotta stay in there.
And only topics from the crowd. Only topics from the crowd.
Exactly. Questions only.
So let's get you mentioned some of the guys at the top of the White Sox list of who they could trade, and let's talk at the very top of that market. So is there really a market for Garrett Crochet and Luis Robert, or is this just a fact-finding mission for the offseason or maybe the future?
Oh yeah, I definitely say there is a market for both players. There's no doubt about that. Whether either player ends up getting traded is going to come down to how the rest of baseball values both Robert and Crochet compared to how the White Sox value them. Both players have major question marks that hurt their value. Crochet, the innings limit, Robert getting hurt all the time. It seems like the consensus from everything I've read from various reports is that the Sox are asking for the moon in discussions for both of them, which is what they should be doing, especially at this point relative to the deadline. If either player does end up getting traded, it's probably going to be either the White Sox lowering their asking price or a GM getting desperate enough to meet Getz's ask. Even with a lower asking price, I still feel like that's still going to be a haul that the White Sox could get for both of them. Will somebody give the Sox that haul? We shall see.
Yeah, I think one of the things that it keeps me very interested in the Luis Robert conversation, because the Luis Robert one seems more far-fetched to me in terms of happening, but the mention of the Mariners, Jerry DiPoto being involved,
yes,
fucking anything is possible. Like I don't.
Tracy, he's got to make 4 trades to get warmed up first, though, before he trades for Robert. Even though they're small, because he's out of practice. It's been like a month since he made a trade. So
he's going to sell first. And they're going to be like, why are the Mariners giving up? And then it'll be like, no, they just needed to get a couple more prospects to trade for Robert. That's what he's doing.
Impressive. They have a worse offense than the Sox. They need him, too.
They could really use him. Well, I was going to ask this, Alex. Everyone's bandying about that the Phillies are the perfect landing spot for Robert. Just looking from the perspective of who can plug in a center fielder most easily and really fits in their team. My question for you is Dombrowski that crazy that he would actually go and do this while the Phillies have the best record in baseball? Is he that crazy?
I would like to think so, but everything I read that he's being restrained with the deadline because they only have a few top prospects, and blowing them all on Luis Robert probably isn't the smartest idea. I had written down, like Teresi said, Seattle made by far the most sense for Robert. They have the farm system that has the prospect capital to make it happen, a big need for offense, and a GM in Jerry DiPoto that doesn't care and will go all in to make the trade.
Yeah, totally agree.
Julio Rodriguez getting hurt too is problematic for them, and man, the collapse in Seattle has been brutal.
Right, they had that division on lockdown, and now all of a sudden, they're in big trouble.
The Sox, helped make it even worse by going hey, Rangers, just win all the games. We'll get you right back in this.
Roll all over us. So, what do you think of the other potential suitors out there, Alex? You hear the Dodgers, you hear the Orioles. Any chance you think any of those teams really jump on Robert, or is this just writers looking? Oh, they have a lot of high end prospects, so this is a match, and not really any real interest there.
I think the Orioles do have the prospects to get it done, but with how they've operated, just prospect hugging basically everybody, it's going to be they're in a spot where it's I'm going to need to see it to believe it, because they've had the opportunities to make all the trades for season, just have not dealt from their surplus of position players. So I put them to the side. At Dodgers, I think they line up more for Crochet because their need is more for the rotation, and they're a team smart enough that would know how to maximize Crochet's workload to make him most effective both throughout the regular season and into the playoffs. And not to mention with all the Crochet talk today about him wanting an extension, the team that did that over the offseason to make a trade contingent on an extension, Dodgers. So I think that's where the Dodgers come in potential White Sox trades.
Yeah, with regards to that question, like the potential extension or whatever, I mean, how much leverage does a player have? Could we see someone like a Garrett Crochet get traded, and then they don't do the extension right away, and he's like, "Fuck you guys, I'm sitting out." Like, is it like Joey Galloway? When Joey Galloway, Treasy sat out for like 13 games in the NFL season, it's like, "Fuck you guys, I need a new contract, and I'm not doing nothing." It's a football thing, right? But could a baseball player actually fucking do this?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Yeah.
I mean, it it would be funny in any scenario if things go awry with this, right? Like let's say he's like I don't want to get traded unless there's an extension, and Chris Getz goes, respectfully, get fucked. You're getting traded. Or if he's like, hey, look, Dodgers, I am not pitching out of the bullpen, or you got to give me an extension if you want to do that. And they said, look, we're not going to pitch you out of the bullpen, and then they only use him as an opener. Like that, that's the kind of shit.
Here's your 30 pitches up front.
That's what I want to see. That's what I want to see. So, and the Dodgers have like the staff to do it.
Oh,
right?
Absolutely.
Like,
yeah.
I mean, they're out there cutting James Paxton, who would be one of our be our number 3.
This would be like a decent starter on most teams. Like, and he's like, get the fuck out of here. We don't have room for you. Sorry. Can we dream a second on Luis Robert? I was just thinking, like, I was looking through Baseball Reference, like, what team would it be a lot of fun if they traded for Luis Robert? I don't think there's any chance in hell that they do it. Maybe you guys think there's a slight chance. But a surprise team come up out of nowhere and say, we haven't been in the playoffs in a long time. We haven't made a good run. We finally got real good young players, like a decent, smallish core, high-end pitching. I would love to see the Pittsburgh Pirates just say, fuck it, and dump some of their their higher guys now are younger guys. So dump those guys off and say, fuck it, we're going for Luis Robert. They can't hit either. They desperately could use a bat, a center fielder, and then having them for 3 years more at relatively cost control. I know $20 million is a lot for the Pirates. That might be the most they paid anyone in a single year. But regardless, dream with me for a second here. Could you imagine that? We have Skeens and Jared Jones and these guys and Mitch Keller, and then you put Luis in center field. They make a fucking run and get into the playoffs. Now that would be cool. That would be where my heart would not be fucking broken where Luis Robert went somewhere like that. You guys think that has any chance at all?
They have the one of the two owners cheaper than Jerry.
I want it to happen. I want it to happen because it's like once you've suffered like we've suffered, you can sniff out the other fans that are having as bad of a time, and it's like, man, the Pirates fans are owed this. Like that. They are owed a trade for like Luis or like a Rosarina or somebody, right? Like they deserve it. They've sat through a lot.
They've been through a lot of bullshit like we have. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Even worse, potentially.
The fact that like they every year you were just like, well, we should trade for Brian Reynolds because like they're not going to build around him.
Exactly.
Like now they finally have a little bit around him. You gotta put in the finishing pieces. And I hate that division. I want to see everyone in that division lose. So like, why not the Pirates?
So many trade ideas. Sarah Davis says Luis Robert for Livy Dunn. Peter Rand says Luis Robert for Yingling in Illinois. It's all over the place. Nathan Chiba says Luis Robert would look good in a Pirates uniform. I agree 100%. He would look great in a Pirates uniform. That's why I was dreaming this up. I was like, man, that would be cool. I'd be fine with that. But yeah, you're right. That's probably never going to happen. I'm sorry.
Man, if Billy Mays was still alive, we could trade for him. I would.
It's huge value, baby.
And now, just for you who may have misheard me, I said Billy Mays, the guy from Pittsburgh. I wasn't making a horrible joke.
Hello.
Just a terrible one. All right.
Exactly.
All right. Next, I don't even want to say this is a tear down because this is still a very good trade chip. But let's talk about Eric Fetty. Alex, who do you got as the suitors, and what do you think the deal's going to look like?
Yeah, so when we talked before the season beat, like Fetty, we went in, it was like all the upside in the world with this deal. I think it was just them and the Mets. Fetty so far has been that and everything they could have hoped for and then some. This move has made Getz look like a genius, not only for signing him, but getting a 2-year deal at that cost, considering some of the contracts that were handed out this winter.
Yep.
Fetty at $7.5 million is a much better value for any comparable pitchers that teams could add in free agency. The cost control that Fetty has opens up his market to multiple mid-market teams like the Brewers, Cardinals, Orioles, or non-spenders like the Astros. I believe Russ Dorsey said today in his deadline preview write-up, there was at least 10 teams that have reached out to the Sox.
Wow.
With about Fetty, with the Cardinals and Astros most aggressive. So those are probably your two front runners to acquire him. I'm not sure about the exact return they can get because it's hard to find a good comp because of how cost-controlled Fetty is. But I think at least a 2-for-1 deal with two prospects. One is like a high floor, good ranked prospect paired with a lottery ticket probably makes the most sense to me. Kind of like what the Twins traded to the Reds for Tyler Mahle 2 years ago. I think that's probably the best comp I could think of.
Yeah, I think one of the comps that we used was Savale last year, because he had more years left, but he wasn't pitching as well.
Yeah.
And then the other trades last year that would be even comparable, because they were shorter. They were 1-year deals. They were rentals. Were like Scherzer and
Verlander, but there was a lot more money changing hands. It's a little more difficult to like judge those things. You know, like.
So like those are tough. But like, I think it does come to something like you're saying, like a guy with like 45, 50 FV kind of range. The problem when I look at this is like the Cardinals seem to be, as you noted, the most aggressive, and you look at their guys, and it's just like a lot of guys that you would see in the White Sox system. Where like this is one of their top prospects. He's super fast, great defender. Well, how's he hit?
Nope.
He's super fast. He's super fast. Like, so there's guys like that in there.
Well, they got the super grindy like middle infield guy that's probably not really a shortstop, but they put him at shortstop. It's all hit tool. Yeah.
Sajasi?
Yeah. He's all hit tool. It's like there's no power. It's just like, well, these are kind of if you want to get a bat, and because I was trying to focus in on the bats a little bit too, it's like the bats are slim pickings in a lot of spots. You know, like they're the best, the prospects that look like they could fit better are the pitchers. It's like, bro, we can't have an all pitching lineup. You can't have just everyone pitches, and then we never hit. I don't know what the deal is.
If it's Rick Ankiel, I'll take it because we'll make him hit.
Lance Lynn's coming home.
Exactly.
Well, the other guys there too is like they're real far from the majors, and like that's a thing that I think should be a concern for all of us Sox fans as we watch this unfold. Is like if they go and they're like, man, we could get a lot of value if we take all these like single A players, like they're so far from the major leagues that just like you're like this is gonna be bad for a long time. You might as well trade Luis if you start getting into those deals. So like
I know I hate looking at it because it makes me sick, Treasy. It makes me sad for the 2025 version of us. We're already alcoholics. We don't need to get any worse. You know,
how real, Alex? How real do you think a suitor like the Astros would be in this scenario?
I think Fetty is right in their wheelhouse. They're a team that's never paid the luxury tax. Like they're surprisingly cheap for what everybody thinks about the Astros. Like they pay their stars handsomely, like Altuve and Bregman. But besides that, it's like the new front office with the Astros hasn't really made the most shrewd moves, and they're also like paying off Abreu's contract, old friend there. So they a cost-controlled starter for both this year and next year would make a lot of sense for them.
Yeah, the Astros also seem, Alex, like they're at the end of their window a little bit, right? So it's like Bregman rolls off as a free agent, and it's like they've had the pitching injuries this year, which they hadn't had before. They'd stayed real healthy, and it just feels like they're getting older as a team. Like this is one of their last shots. Why wouldn't they go for it? Why wouldn't they pay up for someone like this?
Exactly.
And when we looked at them, I feel like they didn't have like any great prospects, but they had some depth in places like the outfield. Like, I mean, like as evidenced by like they couldn't keep Corey Jelks around, right? Like, I mean, like so they have enough in their current outfield and then in the minors that you could trade from that position of like we'll give you maybe a more volume trade, like where it's like 3 or 4 guys, but it's headlined by a 40, 45 FV guy who's maybe like got one or two tools in the outfield, which one has to be hitting. Like it's like I will take a
respectable hit
butcher.
tool and some power, please.
I'll
How
take a
about that?
butcher out there if they could just hit the ball.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was going to ask too, with regards to Fetty, you mentioned the mid-market teams, Alex. Do you think it's a possibility, you know, the Guardians are really struggling with regards to their starting pitching, which is rare for them. Usually they're kind of stocked with it. Do you think it's a possibility Chris Getz just is like, fuck it, I will trade in the division even for a guy who's going to be around for more than 1 year? Do you think he's willing to pull the trigger? Like, is he that sort of GM where he's like, fuck it, we're trying to build up here. We'll just do it even in the division. We don't care.
I think for Fetty, yes, but for guys like Crochet, Robert, no. If that makes sense. Like Fetty, like for as good as he is, he's like mainly like a regular season inning eater. He's not really like the big dominating stuff guy that you expect to throw out there for a playoff start. So I think he can live with trading Fetty to the Guardians, but I think that's about it when it comes to like the more top end of their trade chips.
I love the way you explained that too, Alex, because on my morning walk this morning, I was thinking about Eric Fetty. I was like, he's a get you to the playoffs pitcher,
yes,
not a win a playoff series for you pitcher. Kind of, and I love the way you explained it because to me that's the way I think about him too. Is like he's not so dominant, but like when it's take the ball every 5 days, he's going to help your team get their asses in there, sneak in there, and Cleveland's trying to protect the lead, so it's like makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
But if he's your number 3 and you win the first game in the short series, you might put him in that second game of the playoffs and go like, we're gonna try and get away with something here.
Let's start the needle here.
We got a drink from Sammy Davis Jr. here. It doesn't say shit. I guess he doesn't know how to use the YouTube, but cheers, buddy.
Thank you, buddy. I think he had a comment. Let me see if I can find it.
I don't know if he deserves it.
He says, it was supposed to say, give Alex the $5 so he stops making Alexis pay for all their nice dinners. See, that's why I wanted to get that up here. That's important.
We'll give him a taste of it. We'll give him a taste of it.
Little piece. Now let me break in. There's breaking news. It's not White Sox news, but friend of the show, Jeff Passan. We'll get to him in the later segment.
AJ Puck.
AJ Puck is going to the Diamondbacks, and the Marlins receive a couple outfield prospects deals done. So that really is kicking the trading season off. At least there is something going on. I was talking about it earlier. Not shit had happened yet, so this is like the first deal. Good to see.
Passan also right now, like Anchorman, the pleats in the pants. He finally got a trade going.
He's jumped up.
He's boned up.
He was so bored. He was DMing me the other day, Trees. That's how you know he was bored. Like that's how he's like, fuck everything. I'll even send Beef a few DMs. A fucking jerk.
I wonder whose name he has in his phone of all the GMs in the league that's name is close enough to Beef Loaf that he accidentally clicked on your name and started sending you a message.
It's a good question. I'm not sure.
You know, the comment about dinner, it wasn't too long ago, me and Alex were out to dinner, and it was in the midst of Andrew Vaughn just knocking the shit out of the ball, and he was like, hey man, is your brother a little worried that he's gonna have to eat shit on all the stuff he said about
how dare you
about Andrew Vaughn? And we had a good laugh about it. But you know, Alex, do you think eventually Beef is gonna have to eat shit on the Andrew Vaughn topic?
As much as I would like it to happen, looks like you're in the clear for now, sadly. You look like he's been out for a month there, but he's come crashing down to earth. Even with his struggles, I thought it was interesting, though, speaking of Jeff, that he had listed as a potential trade candidate from the Sox in his deadline preview write-up. Even with how bad his offseason is, like Vaughn, do you guys consider like a change of scenery guy? Maybe the White Sox are just what it fucked them up, and maybe it's just like one tweak that he's actually good. I think that's probably our only hope for Beef Crow. But
yeah, I mean, so we were just talking about the team that it would probably make the most sense for, which is the Astros.
Yes,
they're still trotting
funny,
Singleton
right?
out there, and I mean, like Vaughn's not that much better than Singleton, but if they feel like oh man, we see what is wrong with Andrew Vaughn, right? Like, you know, and like I will be so pissed if Andrew Vaughn goes to the Astros and then like his first game out he has a pair of like thick ass glasses on and he could just knock the shit out of the ball.
That would be absolutely insane. It's funny though, like you might, if you were hitting Andrew Vaughn 7th or 8th, right? The only problem with the scenario of Andrew goes somewhere else, changes scenery, is you're not going to fix the fact that he doesn't hit for enough power. I think that's just kind of, there's a normal limitation there. I think you could fix the
boxes.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I think you could. I think you could fix though the like him hit for higher batting average. Like I think that could work. The only issue is like I don't like he's improved a lot on defense. I still don't think he's a good defender. What I would call a good defender. When the Astros were making their run, they had Yuli Gurriel there, who was a very good defender at first. Jose was a step down from that. But Jose is not a bad defender either. And Vaughn is trying to get better, but I don't think like. He doesn't really like solve anything in particular while you're hoping for some upside on something. I think he's just kind of mediocre at like everything. And so I don't know. It'd be surprising to me, Alex, if someone devoted either first base or DH to him, like in a trade, even if it was a small trade, it would kind of surprise me if a contender had capacity to do it.
Back to the Mariners. I was looking at first baseman for like all teams. It's like, is there any teams out there that have first baseman performing worse than Vaughn? Vaughn's an upgrade. There you go. Jerry DePoto.
Yeah, that's right.
It all comes back to DePoto. We can never escape him.
He's inevitable.
That's right. Absolutely correct.
Quick drink here from our guy Chuck. He goes, "Great to see everyone in KC, and I survived more car violence. Nice beard, Alex."
Thanks,
Cheers,
Chuck.
Thanks, Chuck. Remember when Chuck got on the bus and everyone's yelling at Chuck?
Like no one wanted to sit next to Chuck on the bus. But, dude, he just has the worst luck with cars. Fucking,
you ain't kidding.
He's down in KC. His Uber gets rear-ended. Gets hit.
You cannot make it up.
I'm like, how the fuck? We were sitting in the bar at one point, and it was like the Saturday. And we saw Chuck coming down, and he's like crossing the street, and like we all stopped and watched him cross the street, and he got across unscathed, and a fucking round of applause from the bar, like just that he made it across the street.
Pouring out of the bar. The best.
All right, let's get a little bit wild here because the Future Sox guys set the player traded over under at 8.5. How many players would be traded over under 8.5? Alex, where are you at? And who do you got to get up to whatever number you're at?
Yeah, I think it's a good line to think about. I went back and forth on this today, but unlike last year when I was the only one on the over, I think I'm leaning on the under. I have a hard time thinking of ways they can get to 9. Like I think Jeff in his article included like 7 guys, and that included guys like Tanner Banks and Andrew Vaughn. In that 7, it's like guys who didn't even like really think of us trade candidates. So like to get to 9, that would probably take all 7 of them, including players like somebody to take the bullet on like a Mike Soroka or Chris Flexen, which doesn't seem too likely. But then again, Nicky Lopez has been traded twice in the past year, so we'll see.
Right.
I mean, we talked about that, Alex, the other day. Is like Nicky Lopez. His salary might just be pushing him out of being traded at this point because he makes $4 million. So you're on the hook for $2 million, and then you're gonna have to probably non-tender him next year unless you want to keep him around. And so like that one is difficult. I mean, I think where you usually get the volume, right? Like where if you wanted to have a high volume trade deadline, which the Marlins might try to have, it usually comes from the bullpen. And I think there's a couple names that you could point to in the bullpen, Kopech, Brabia. But past that, it's a little bit difficult to think of any of these guys where a team's like, yeah, I need that. I need more of that kind of guy, right? Like the Tanner Banks thing. Beef, I know you love him.
Tanner Blanks, I love him. He had a blank today. It was only a third of an inning, but still.
It's hard to see him being someone that a team's just like, yeah, we need that.
Please give us Tanner Blanks. No, I don't see a lot of begging for that, but it is possible someone could take a flyer. But I was thinking we count them down. So you said Kopech and Brabia. You guys both on board with that? With those two guys getting traded,
they're both
right?
movable.
Okay, so in the bullpen, let's forget Tanner Blanks for now. Is Steven Wilson have a shot at getting traded, or is he absolutely his ass bolted to the White Sox for another year?
He's cheap.
They should.
They should.
Personally, just principle.
I remember
cheap relievers.
I remember earlier in the season, someone posted that they should trade him to the Padres, and I was like, well,
It was Sox fan Mike. He's like, here's why I think everyone's getting traded. It was back to the Padres. I don't think you realized that, but it was funny to us. Okay, so we'll leave Steven Wilson off there for now while we're trying to get to this 9. Paul DeYoung.
yeah, I think DeYoung.
He's gone. Pham is gone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he should be.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, after you get to that, so Fetty is probably gone.
Yeah.
So that's we're at 5, right?
Yeah.
So to me, that like the 5 right there is probably a lock. That's probably the lock.
Mm-hmm.
And then the remaining guys,
It's Crochet or Robert. You could probably give a 1.
yeah. So maybe give
One
one
of
for
them will
those. So
probably
you got 6,
Mm-hmm.
right?
I think Chris Flexen could go.
Okay, he's got team control, but he hasn't been that good. Like
I don't think he has
if
team
this-
control. I think he's a free agent. I want to say he's a free agent.
No, I think he's got. I apologize because he has like kind of a weird contract
just-
situation.
okay.
But I think he's still ARB eligible. Let me just check it real quick. But yeah, I think you could like go beyond this season and be like, oh, okay, Chris Flexen, you're still here. So let's see real quick.
But Flexen's the kind of guy that
Yeah,
I
he is
feel
ARB
like has
eligible.
a little bit of trade value in the sense that he can eat some innings for you if you have like an injury where a guy's coming back, and then you can move him to the bullpen. You can feel comfortable with him in pitching out of the bullpen. It's just like, to my earlier point, he's one of those guys where it's like, who needs that? Like who's in need of that guy?
Yeah, I don't think he's going.
And it's going
anywhere,
to have a special situation.
515 FIP. Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think he's. I think his ass will comfortably be here, and he'll be eating up innings for this team here, not so much for a playoff contender. So we're at 6, assuming one of those guys, one of the big boys moves. Anyone else in there?
It's Nicky's the other guy. Nicky's
So
another
Nicky's
guy.
7.
Nicky
Nicky could be
Vaughn.
7. Vaughn could be 8 if you can move Vaughn.
Yeah,
You're not
it's very tough to get to 9.
Yeah, I think it's tough to get to 9. Yeah.
You needed more relievers. You needed more relievers to like
Anyone to
show
pitch
up.
well out of the bullpen.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely right. So I think we're gonna fall short. I'm with you on the under here. I just think when they said 8.5, I was like, that's an insane number. And that was back when you thought like a few extra guys were like, oh man, they might be able to trade Jordan Leisure if they wanted to. I know he was under control and all the shit, and then he
Rocca
sucked
before he got hurt. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are we including Robbie Grossman as one of the guys?
I asked about that. And they said no, just the deadline. So if you slide Robbie Grossman in there, because I even heard Chuck. I listened to Chuck's podcast, which I rarely ever listen to, but he had Jesse Rogers on. They're like, I want to talk trade deadline and stuff. He named all the guys they trade since last trade deadline. Totally forgot about Robbie Grossman. I was so upset. I was like, man, these guys here 2 weeks. They flipped him for a reliever, and you forget about the guy.
I was looking at the MLB trade rumors, like top 50 lists of like trade candidates for the deadline. I couldn't help but laugh when Tommy Pham and Kevin Pillar were right next to each other on their rankings.
That guy was here.
The over and the under, DFA and Pillar.
Another masterclass by Guts. Billy Wire says, Beef looks like he's aged 10 years. This season's killed him. Fuck you, my friend. That's all. You show up in the comments once, and you come and insult me. Get the fuck out of here. Maddie Rice says, Sheets, question mark. I don't think so. I can't see it, but I don't know if you guys can or not.
No, because like what team needs a Gavin Sheets?
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's like
They got a Gavin Sheets at home usually, you know? They don't.
yeah,
that's why
there's
you don't
usually a
need
guy that does what he does. And if they don't have that guy, they're usually just sitting on the street for you to pick them up. So like I want
it. Like Ty France.
yeah, like Ty France. Like if you needed Gavin Sheets, you just pick up Ty France. I like Gavin Sheets. Like as a person, like he seems real nice, and I would love to see him be successful. I wrote about him earlier this year where I'm like, I still don't quite know what Gavin Sheets is. I kind of know what he is now. And it's like, it's really like a quadruple A player. And like, that's a useful guy. That's a useful guy. But like, I'm not trading for that. Like, think about it from your perspective. If you were rooting for a team that could actually win, I know this is hard to put yourself in the mind frame, but like, would you be like, I need a Gavin Sheets at the deadline. I need that.
No,
you could see yourself going like that Paul DeYoung guy. I could use that pop off the bench as like a utility guy. Like I could do that. But
so when you're playing the negative EV crap scheme and you're looking for a lot of volatility, Paul DeYoung, most volatile guy you can get, right?
Yes.
Because when he does hit, it's going to be home runs, and like you might get 1 or 2 in a playoff series. Like that's huge for him. Timothy Maher says 7 guys off a 160 loss team is still nuts. I agree. If they move even 5, I'll be very impressed. I'll be honest with you.
Back to Sheets for a second. Wildly, I think Jesse Rogers first said it. It's like depending on how the deadline goes, like if Vaughn, Kopech, Robert Crochet get traded, he'll end up being the last man standing from that 2021 AL Division, AL Central winning team.
Holy shit!
Which is just wild to think about.
And then Pedro will make him play second base or something ridiculous.
Bring back Lurie Legend. All right, we got time to bring Lurie home. That's what that means right there to me.
Has Lurie cracked a team yet? I mean, like he's
in the minors, right?
He was at the minors with the Braves, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
Oh, they got to bring him up to play second base, baby.
Yes.
Playoff home runs guaranteed, my friend.
Lurie having another great playoff would be a playoff game would be awesome. All right. I think we've got our group of players that we think can be traded. Which White Sox returns in trade will be surprisingly good, and which will be surprisingly ungood? Alex, what do you think? Who's going to be a surprisingly good return in a trade?
Relatively, like I said earlier about Steven Wilson, like I've said for years on pods, is like cost-controlled relievers are a valuable asset, especially when they have options. That's something teams have shown a willingness to pay for. Yes.
That's why I got the Jimmy Lambert picture here, just like Lambeau, baby. If he stayed healthy, he's not healthy yet, but.
Oh yeah. Speaking of, did you see Gregory Santos got hurt again last night?
I did not see that. I'm not rooting for the injury, but it is kind of funny.
Somewhere Brian Bannister is laughing hysterically.
Mm-hmm.
But besides Wilson, maybe Paul DeYoung, just because of how cheap his contract is. Like, I think it's $1.5 million left on the deal, and he's actually been surprisingly good comparatively. Other than that, I think everything's gonna like come towards expectations.
What do you think about Michael Kopech's return? What do you think that will look like? Because I feel like he's extremely volatile, right? We've seen him be terrible here and just be such a bad reliever. Then he throws immaculate inning. Mm-hmm. I wonder what teams kind of think of him.
I think like he's just like a prime bounce back candidate. Like he's like the definition of a change of scenery guy. Like I think it was Heyman himself. It was like I think a lot of other GMs, evaluators just feel like the White Sox have ruined him and like fuck with him. And if they get their hands on him, they can really like get the most out of him. So I think he could get a somewhat better than expected return, but in the end, he's still just a reliever. That's pretty expensive. So I don't think the return will be too outrageous.
Makes sense.
Beef, where are you at on this one? What do you think's going to be exceptionally good or exceptionally ungood?
Yeah, I kind of feel like I've heard and read the tea leaves that the Fetty return might be a little softer than people are kind of thinking, right? We were looking at it like, oh man, this guy is like a number 2 starter, and he had a sub-3 ERA, and he's looking good. And it's like the teams look at him like the way Alex explained him earlier in the show. It's like, yeah, it's a guy to help get you to the playoffs, but maybe he's like your 4th starter in the playoff series. He's not a guy you're going to go to first because he's not overwhelming. It's a lot of it depends on like his pitchability, and it's like he's not going to blow guys away and get 10 strikeouts in 5 innings in a playoff series. So I think probably he will underwhelm us. I still think Kopech is going to get a bigger return than I'm envisioning, at least. Only because of the parts and then the extra year. Like, I think he'd be a perfect fit in Baltimore. Because if Baltimore got Felix Bautista to get on a straight and narrow and become a dominant pitcher, they could probably figure out Kopech too. And they're not willing to pay a lot, but like, I think to pay a little more than I was expecting maybe for Kopech. But I hear Alex's point that like he's already making a bunch of money and like teams aren't really going to want to pay extra. They're like, well, we could maybe fix your problem. The thing you fucked up, we might be able to fix, but we ain't giving you premium value for this shit.
I mean, I think though that the Sox are like, I agree that I think with both of you, I think Kopech is probably going to get a little more than we would normally think on the deal. And I think part of it's going to be, I think Chris Getz is going to be very believable in his stance of, I'll keep Kopech. Bannister thinks he could do something with him. He's now that Kopech's like listening to him, we think that we've got something, and he'll be our closer next year, or our high leverage guy, and that's fine. And I think that might actually come off as believable, more so than like him trying to do the same with Fetty. And I think the Fetty thing is like so foregone that they're going to trade him, that the deals, it's coming in like when the Sixers were like, we're going to trade AI. What will teams give us? And everybody's like, nothing. Like,
we know you don't want him anymore.
You don't like him. We'll give you the least amount we can.
But I agree on Fetty being the underwhelming return. Not to pile on him like everybody did with Chili's, but I think I saw James Fox yesterday saying like he expects a top 100 prospect plus another top 10 prospect in return for Fetty. It's just like I don't think teams are going to be willing to cough up a top 100 guy for Fetty, even with how cost controlled he is.
Yeah, I don't think so.
It's just like all relative to expectations. And with Kopech, like you mentioned, is like for like the average fan just hates him. So like getting anything is going to be like a win for like most people relative to their expectations.
Yeah, no, that's true, Alex. And I think some of the thought processes out there, things that people are throwing around is like they're saying, "Oh, what's this guy's value?" But they're not taking into account that the trade deadline market is generally weak, or it has been since they added the extra team. Some teams are just like, "Fuck it, we don't care," and the teams that kind of have shit almost clinched already, they also kind of don't care. They're like, "Well, we're lined up. Unless there's something we really need for a playoff series, we're not worrying about spending much at these deadlines." And so like this deadline's become a little soft. Like you've had the Soto trade was a big one, and the Luis Castillo trade. But other than that, teams are just like doing little shit and like, okay, that's it. We got a guy who might be a fourth outfielder. We got a backup catcher, and we got a reliever. Okay, that's good. We're done here, and no one's really kind of pushing the chips in. And I think that like the effect of the way teams kind of treat it these days should lower everyone's expectations, but hasn't yet. It hasn't gotten there to everybody.
Yeah, even like the Scherzer-Turner trade, like a few years ago, the Dodgers and the Nats didn't really like get back much. Like,
yeah, right.
Yeah, and it feels like that's going to be the case this year, and like that's why when the Crochet Robert to the Dodgers got floated, I was like, no, because you're not going to get it out. And like this, I mentioned this at the Timothy O'Toole show, and I think people were ready to throw tomatoes at me if they had them. Was like I worry that like when they start getting into these conversations with Crochet and Robert, and teams are like, we're not going to give you that much, that they might look to offload a contract in this trade and get rid of Benintendi in that trade and be like, you're giving us $50 million then. That's like probably my biggest concern in this. And if that's the case, Crochet will be the most underwhelming return that we get. But like I'm hoping that that's just me being like nuts and paranoid.
Yeah, going off his history, I think with Getz, like the one thing I really did admire with him from the past offseason, he stuck to his guns on like his valuation of Cease and didn't accept anything lower. And taking an offer just to trade him. I don't think that will be the case. Like I think if they do end up keeping both Robert and Crochet, it's going to be because no team met their ask. They're not going to get to the point where they're just going to throw Benintendi into the deal just to get it done. So I don't think we will have to worry about that. But you never know with this team.
Yeah, I'm going to continue to worry about it. So at least I have one thing to be relieved about at the deadline.
Well, you're a worrier. That's why your friends call you Whiskers. I do like also, you mentioned he sticks to his price, but I also like that Getz is willing to spread the risk a little bit on his trades. He doesn't necessarily need your number one prospect. Okay, we'll take 4 of these guys that we really like, and we'll start, because they got to realize this system has no depth. Even when they were good coming into those seasons where they're going to compete, they had no goddamn depth. And I think he's probably seen the error of those ways. I don't know how much he'll be able to actually make good on that promise, but like at least that seems like the approach.
All right, so we're going to let you go in just a second, but I'm going to give you this one last question. If Chris Getz is able to trade Andrew Vaughn at the deadline, do you tenure him for a decade? Do you just give Getz a 10-year contract?
He's like the Pope. He has to die to get out of the spot.
Joins the Matt Crawford record family man status. So
Exactly. Yes. He can hang out with Ronnie Woo. We'd be fine with all of us.
Well, Alex, man, thank you for joining us. It's always
Fun
awesome.
as always.
Yes.
Always awesome when we have you
Absolutely.
on. And I can't wait to talk to you more about this in the seats the next time I see you. We'll talk soon. Thanks again. Anything you want to promote before you get going?
Love you, Luke.
All right, Alex. Thanks a
What
lot,
a
man.
finish.
We'll talk to you later.
Absolutely perfect.
If he would have thrown an Uncrustable, it would have been just fucking really out of line. But it was.
I know. You might have had to go edit that from the podcast.
I might have cut that out later, but you know, he behaved.
He kept it clean there. That was good.
All right, Beef. Pay some bills.
You got it, baby.
Hi, I'm My Sox Summer, famous White Sox Twitter personality. If you know me, you know I like a deal. And at Mazda of Orland Park, the deals are plentiful. Looking to enter the plug-in hybrid conversation? Mazda of Orland Park has you covered. Lease a 2025 Mazda CX-70 PHEV for only $517 a month. Imagine getting 490 miles per tank. Holy shit, that's a ton of miles. If you already own a Mazda and are looking to upgrade, current Mazda owners can get a loyalty reward towards the purchase or lease of a new Mazda. Mazda Loyalty Reward provides $1,000 for current Mazda customers who purchase or lease a new 2025 Mazda vehicle. And finally, if you're looking to buy new in 2025, take advantage of Mazda's 2.9 APR financing for 36 months. Save some money while driving one of the safest vehicles on the road. Mazda of Orland Park, home of the Zoom Zoom Nation. 8910 West 159th Street, Orland Park. 708-444-3200. Zoom Zoom.
All right, Beef. The second half of the show, it's just me and you. I figure
baby.
we just run through a little bit on the KC trip. We got to go back to last week. Last week before the trip, I gave some over-unders. Let's just run through it, see where we're at.
Okay.
My Sox Summer vomits were over under 1.5. He came under.
He did.
Under,
He had zero. He told me though that Friday night he said he was real shaky. Like he went when we got back, we came back and we were in the casino and everything. He went up to his room immediately after he came back from the game. He's like, yeah, I couldn't do it. He goes, I had to go lay down on the bed. So he was getting close. If we had found a way to keep him down in the casino with us, we would have got at least one puke out of him.
Yeah, we needed something to grab his attention. We just didn't have anything because it's casino. He's not very into that, so we couldn't get him. Wally attends over under 1.5 games. He went over. He made it to both games. Wally was in fine form all weekend.
He was very fun. He did not get full Walter. He was just like fun, talking shit. Like when he gets to the perfect level of drunkenness where he's talking a lot of shit, that's the best time to be around Wally. He's so funny.
Friday night, he was like at that sweet spot of his drunkenness. And I was talking to him, and I'm like, can you believe My Sox Summer checked a bag for a flight to KC for 2 days? Like, and he goes, he flew Southwest. It's free to check a bag. Of course he checked it. Anything free. All right, I got you.
That's Wally money, My Sox Summer math right there.
I loved it. So, next one was total innings of baseball we're in the stadium for over under 16. We crushed that.
We did, yeah.
We crushed that. We stayed too long the first game because the Uber situation
Uber's crushed us.
Was a disaster. The
Uber
situation
we kind of knew it was going to be bad. It was worse than I thought it would be, actually. But it was still fine. It was not a bad night. We weren't sweating our asses off. It was okay to be out there, but still.
That one's on me.
But 17 innings. We saw 17 innings.
We should roll. And I was like, nah, it's going to be all right.
We're good.
Or not.
Or we were not.
All right. So Sean Jankowski says, yes, Zaddy.
Oh.
Cheers.
Hello, my friend. Thank you.
All right. We got over under 99.5, 108 tweets from the weekend. I think we crushed that.
I think it was way over.
I didn't go back and count, but there was a billion.
The 108 and KC tweets were all over the place. Yeah, it was really good.
And then puke on the bus ride over under half. That didn't even come close. No one was in no one was in shaky territory.
People were having fun. I mean, our guy Huck was really holding court on the way there, was cracking us all up, just having a good time. So it was very fun.
Now this one, White Sox Twitter member, asleep in public, over under 1.5. That crushed.
Way over.
I know there's at least 3.
At least three. We had 3 documented. No.
None were
No,
me.
no, you were good. You were good. You stayed awake.
And none were in the casino that I saw.
No. All at the ball game, which
all
was
at the game.
Bizarre. Like,
all at the game.
I guess that's a good place to take a nap.
Now
Who knew?
Well, I mean, like we do know one of our guys is a napper. So we kind of had, that's why it's 1.5.
That's why I'm glad he was there. You know?
He'd take a nap, but like, I was surprised by some of the other ones. Some of the other ones.
Yeah,
but,
a little bit.
But fun nonetheless. And then the last one, who loses more at the casino, Beef Loaf or Chirizi?
Baby.
It was me.
It was you.
Me. And it was a small loss. I think I ended up down like $100 or $200 for the weekend, which I to me is a win. Right? Like
that is a win. That is a win. A whole weekend.
Beef, a lot of valuable player points.
I did earn a lot too myself.
But you crushed it.
I did crush it. I got a huge hand pay on Friday night, $5,800. And you know what was funny? We were playing upstairs. We were playing a little video poker. I was getting crushed. You were not. You were fine. I was down probably almost a dime by the time we got done playing up there. And you and Quernsey were like, we're going to go get ready for the game. And I look over to Mrs. Beef. I'm like, you want to go upstairs and get ready? She's like, I'm ready. Let's gamble some more. It's like, beautiful. I'm like, you pick a slot. She's like, no, you pick one. You've been losing. You pick something, and then you'll turn your luck around. I played a little Buffalo Chief, and man, the free games kept coming, and the meter kept rolling. And who knew? 5-cent machine, $12.50, and you get a payout like this. It really helped morale for the Beef Loaf at the Harris. Yeah. But also,
you were flying high after that.
But also, you know what it helped Treasy is, fast forward to Saturday night, the trip's basically over. We're back at the casino. We're just kind of hanging out. We're playing a little bit, and people are getting tired of going to bed. And it was a late night. People were up till 11:30, midnight, 12:30, whatever. So Mrs. Beef leaves me at 12:30, and she's like, you know, hon, just stay up as late as you want. Don't worry. And I was like, this is like the worst advice to give me in the casino when we got to fly, 11:30 the next morning. And so I told myself in my brain right then, Treasy, I'm like, all right, 2 a.m. And then that's it. I'm gonna be done or whatever. And it's like 1:30 and I'm still gambling or whatever. I'm still having a great time. And I'm like, all right, 3 a.m. Either 3 a.m. or I've won a bunch on this trip. Whatever I got in my pocket, if I lose it all, or 3 a.m. is going to be my buffer. And I was down there, degenerate gambling, like the total fucking animal I am. And all the other fucked up people were around me. And I was like, these are other fucked up, degenerate gambling people too. And I felt at home, even though I felt like, man, I felt like a lesser person because I felt so fucked up. But I had so much fun that even on the way back to the room, I did I'm quitting at 3. I didn't lose all the money in my pocket, but I stopped and got a humongous Snickers bar. I was like, this is going to save me in the morning. I'll eat this huge Snickers. But it was like Santino. I had the Santino Snickers, basically. And I can recall every moment, just like in the novel, if I need to. But I felt great the next day. I had no hangover, no nothing. So, it was nice to just degen out, even though I was totally by myself. So a great time.
That was the crazy thing. I feel like that, like each day we were kind of like, we woke up and we're like, I feel like I should be hungover, but I feel absolutely fine. It was a solid weekend. That I don't know what they're pumping in the air of that casino, but I appreciate
the smell though.
But you're down in the casino till 3 a.m. Now this ain't Vegas casino. This is Kansas City casino. So like they're not even serving drinks at that point, right?
No, last call's at 2:30, baby. That's it. Like they're fucking. No, I didn't need any more drinks. Let's be honest with you. But I got one at like 2:15. I got one right before last call. I got a double Captain and Coke. I was like, I need one more. I just I keep the caffeine flowing. That's all. Someone stopped me in the hallway and they're like, oh, you up, man? And I'm like, no. And it was a group of people. And it's like the one guy goes, I'm going with him. And I was like, you are not going with me. And I walked right past him. I was like, I don't want anything to do with anyone right now. Okay, I just want to go to my goddamn room. I don't want to talk to anybody on my way up there. What the fuck?
Oh my god. He just wanted a piece of that Snickers bar.
Yeah, it was a big Snickers bar, Billy. And I thought about getting a Gatorade or something, but I thought the Snickers was more vital than my survival. I didn't think any more liquid was needed. So.
What was funny at the casino was the Saturday morning. We're going to go to the Negro League Museum that day.
Yeah, that's right.
And we're getting ready to leave, and you hit again. You hit, and it's like it's on like a penny machine, so we have no idea what this thing's going to pay out, right? And it's like rolling up, and it's like $1,200 is where you have to get a hand pay, and it's like getting close to there, and it's like we have to leave.
We gotta go. Like we
have to leave to be on time, and we're like, if a hand pay is happening, I'm just
staying.
missing.
You guys are going.
And it came, I think it was like $16 underneath, and we were like, yes. It was the first time I was in a casino, and I was like, less money, yes.
It's good shit. Absolutely was. Speaking of the Negro League Museum, what were your thoughts on this, Trees? I want to get what did you think about being there?
I really liked it. It's just such a great place to just honor all that went on then. But like I like that it doesn't give you the idea that it was like all good. Right? It's like it doesn't paint a story of like
does not sugarcoat it.
What a beautiful time. No. Right? And I was actually I was sitting at the bar and this is a rare occasion, and I took full advantage of it. Sitting at the bar having a drink with Jim Margulis. I'm like, I'm gonna.
That's
sidle up.
I saw you guys huddled up for a while there. Yeah.
I'm gonna sidle up. I'm gonna talk to him as long as he's willing to talk to me. and we were talking about the museum, and like one of the things that he brought up that I thought was very poignant, and I was like, yeah, this is. It's upsetting when you think about it in this fashion. Is like he's like the saddest part about going through there is like as you get further and further along, and you see. Okay, the league did this, they did this, and then like the color barrier is broken, and then he's like these teams were just like kind of picked apart and left with kind of the league's left with nothing and like kind of and it's like it's not like when you talk about like the ABA NBA thing, right? Where and I know it's a very different thing, but I'm just talking about leagues where like the players start to combine. Like the ABA like had some teams go into the NBA, and the teams that didn't were compensated very well for that, and like a lot of the players still then trickled into the league. It wasn't really the case with the Negro League. It's a much sadder end to what was something that shouldn't have had to exist in the beginning, like to begin with. And so,
but still a very long-standing league. I mean, the league's existed for a long time.
Oh. And when you read
decades for this shit,
all the stuff and like and just the players and like just everything that's in there, it's very cool what they did.
Yeah,
like it's an amazing thing, like to stand up a league like that. And I was really kind of like as a Chicagoan, like kind of like proud that like where they did a lot of the kind of like the inception of the league, and like you see a lot of the documents of like where they signed is like not far from where we grew up, right? Yeah. Like right over in Bronzeville, and like real close to where we went to high school, where we go to games all the time now. Like it was cool to see that, and it's like think about how horrible of a time this group of people's having, and just in general, and then they can't play in that league, and they rather than just like go fuck it, man, well, like we're not fuck baseball. They were like, no, we're gonna play baseball. We love
baseball.
We're gonna create this league, and we're gonna do it our way. We're gonna have a good time, and like the memorabilia that they still have to me is incredible. That they still have so much of this stuff. The craziest thing, Beef, and I'll stop talking after this one. The craziest thing though to me was we're walking out, like well, not all the way up, but you're walking towards like the end of the exhibit, and there is just this like massive glass case of baseballs signed by all these Negro League players, and like you're looking at it and you're just like, oh my god, look at all this, and in the middle it says the Geddy Lee collection.
You're like, that Geddy Lee?
And I was like, I turned to, I was like right by Mr. Hand, and I'm like, that kid, not that Geddy Lee. There's got to be a different Geddy Lee. And he's like, no, the guy from Rush. Huge baseball fan. He has like this massive memorabilia collection.
Insane.
This is his collection of baseballs. I was like, that's insanity on its own. But that was like, that's the kind of thing though. It's like, how do this many baseballs still exist? Like, it's like someone curated this collection. It's great that someone
it's awesome
with the money that he has was like, I'm going to get this all together, and then I'm going to have the museum put it on display instead of it being in some like dude's house, right? Like, or in a million different houses just scattered across the country. We're getting to see this kind of all at once, take it in and see just the breadth of the league, and see that's the big thing. It's like you start looking at all of those different baseballs, and you start to realize like how many different great players played in this league in this like in terms of like the entirety of baseball, such a short period of time,
right?
And like all these like we know a lot of these names, like that's how good these guys were. So it was just like one of those things where it's like this was unfortunately a short time ago, and like if this was 200 years ago, you'd be like, well, you know, it was like that back then. It's shitty that it's like this is like not even 100 years ago. And like, so, but like, so you're looking at
when these leagues were ending, our parents were alive, you know, like,
and it's like,
kind of stuff.
But it's such a great tribute to everything that was there. And like, they have like just a really great thing. And like a lot of the quotes in there, like are not sugarcoating anything. And I love it. I love how like honest and bold that all of it is. And I just really appreciated it.
Tracy, I agree 100%. A couple thoughts. One thing that really surprised me, and I took a picture of it, and I've been thinking about it more and more, and I kind of want to look into it a little bit more, is that the Negro League not only had female executives but owners, and why to take and this is in the 30s, 40s, 50s, or whatever. Why to take MLB till 2021 to have a female GM is just like absurd to think about in the context of like that shit was, you know, 70, 80, 90 years ago. They were way ahead with regards to that stuff. And then there's still nothing like in this league, and still veritably nothing, right? You had one GM, and now that GM is actually out of that job and not in there anymore.
You have one play-by-play announcer.
I mean, it's just bizarre how little women have crossed into it comparatively, right? Respective to that league and the history of that. The other thing to me with regards to the museum, I loved it too. I had a great time there. It's small. They pack a lot into a small space. I think they deserve more room. So I think anyone interested in funding this, please get in there and fund this. And the other thing that
they are trying to get a bigger space. I saw
that they're trying to build out. They're trying to do more of a complex. You know, and it also deserves. This was a self-guided tour. It deserves a tour guide. When you got 50 people, it'll be cool to have a tour guide telling you about some of the highlights of stuff. Let you explore a little bit too, but also just dictating to you the important things so you don't miss anything when you're going through the museum, and so that you get like the full effect. I think the history is rich enough that it does deserve to have an orator for every decent-sized group that comes through there. And so I think going through there, you see how great it is, but you also see like, man, there could be more here, man. Maybe we put some money into this and you know, you can get a little more out of this. But I was happy that Jim did a good job of spearheading that and getting that all set up for us to go and do it, because I think as a group, we really all enjoyed that trip.
Still absolutely incredible that everybody showed up. Like, because it was like, what was it? It was like
51 people, I think we had, or something like that.
At like 10:30 in the morning.
10:30.
The day after we all went to a game. Like
everyone got up.
We didn't take it easy at that Friday game. I mean, like that's the first day of vacation partying.
That's correct.
And like we were up for that, and like, man, that was really cool. I wish in hindsight that I knew a little bit more about like that specific area and how close everything was going to be, because I might have set up a little bit of time for us to go, because in the same building they have like a jazz museum.
Yeah.
And like we probably should have hit that. Not really, because I didn't realize how much time was going to be in between things, how close together all the stuff that Jim and Josh planned was. Right. So like I think we could have probably snuck that in. But nevertheless, I think we used our time very well that day. We ended up going out to eat. Was it Grinders?
Grinders, yeah.
Sean and Micah were like, "Hey, there's this place down the street." I was like, "I'm in." Sandwiches? I'm in.
That was a fun lunch. It was a good time. Yep.
That was good. Absolutely. And then we hit Double Shift Brewing. Good stuff there. And then, what was the name of the place Josh got us the whole section?
Good question. I cannot remember the name.
International
name of the bar.
Tap House, I think.
I think that's it. I think that's it.
Well, that was a great space.
Yeah.
And we had this kind of whole like little section to ourselves with TVs and then like an outdoor piece and like it was great.
Good private room for us, especially for our size group, which you're thinking like 40, 50 people basically. And it was a really good size for us where people can move around and talk to each other and hang out. And there was a lot of that. There was a lot of pictures. We had the temporary tattoos of the hashtag 108ing with the pinwheel in there for the Sox machine. And then wildly, Jim Margulis got Scott Carroll to show up for White Sox fans.
Yes.
He was hanging out with us. And he was a sport, too. He was having fun and taking pictures of people and shooting the shit and having some drinks. Like he was just like a regular guy hanging out there, which was very cool in my opinion.
We were kind of messing with him a little bit, like, hey, man, you should come do these playbacks with us and stuff. And he's like, oh, that sounds cool. I was like, hey, if it goes in rain, like, can we cut to some House Hunters? We do that, you know?
He was in on it. He was like, let's do it.
He was very nice about it. He could have been like, "Go fuck yourself, Teresi." He was a very nice guy. I appreciated that. Now, Beef, who was your favorite bartender? The very competent bartender that would take your order, get your drink back to you, know what happened in the last 2 minutes, or the one that probably did more cocaine than Sigmund Freud and was just like would be walking around with your drink going like, whose is this?
I prefer competency behind the bar. So yeah, the first bartender. In fact, when I got the other bartender, I was like, oh fuck! Like I heard you guys talking about, and I was like, damn it, I didn't get the good bartender this time for my drink.
So my last go up to the bar, I got her, and I was like, I'll have that Mexican lager, and I'll close out. And she's like, okay. And then she just wandered off, and I was like,
"It's like deuces."
We'll see what happens. And then she comes back with not a Mexican lager, like a mixed drink. And she's like, "Was this yours?" I was like, "That's not mine." She gives it to somebody else. She goes, gets the beer that was poured. It's sitting there poured, and she was like, "Oh, this one's yours." And she hands it to me, and she goes, "And what was the other drink you wanted?" I was like, "I just wanted to close out." And she goes, "Okay, I'll get that for you in a second." And then, like, 2 minutes later, she comes back and she's like, "What was that drink you wanted?" And I was like, "I just need the bill, lady. I just need to pay you for the drinks." Eventually, we got that done. The transaction went through.
You made it to the bus before the bus left. That's the key.
But then we did get on the bus. The bus was great.
The bus was fun,
was good. And then we go to the games. Beef, what did you think about the park?
I mean, we went in 2018, Treasy. The park is not much different than it was then. I think it's an easy to navigate ballpark. The only thing I don't like about it is that they do the double level and the lower. So if you're sitting in the 100 level, it's a lot of steps down and up. Now, we're of an age where it's fine. It's not like we got creaky joints or anything like that. It's just a pain in the ass. You know, it's just sort of a pain. Like, I got to carry 3 beers and I got to fucking carry them down all this shit. Like, so I make sure I don't spill anything. It's more of a pain in the ass to not having, like, easy outs there. But I like that they have areas kind of on the perimeter. Like, we cut around one time to go to a different bathroom because we're like, fuck, there's a huge line. And then that bathroom over there is empty. We're going to go to that when we cut through this thing. So, like, I like that it has some of that shit, you know?
I was going to bring that up, Beef. I'm very proud of us. So, you know, like, the 108, the origins of us is like, hey, we're going to be at the ballpark all the time. We'll tell you, you know, what's good, what's bad at the ballpark, you know, what you want to do, where to get the cheap tickets, do all this shit. Like, we're here to help.
Yep.
We were at that park for less than an hour, and we had already figured out that the bathroom by us was fucked up.
It was fucked up.
But if you walk out right back past it and then go over through the rocks, then there's another bathroom, and no one's there.
It was empty. Exactly.
And that was our bathroom the whole weekend. And it was just like this weird walk. And like the one time a security guard's looking at me walking through, and it's like, you know what I'm doing. I want the good bathroom.
I got to pee, boy.
I don't want the bathroom with 100 dudes. I want the bathroom that's empty.
That's right. What's wrong with that?
but I was thoroughly confused, Beef, by how understocked the beer tubs were.
Oh my God.
Like, I felt like the beer tub guy that was by us had to shut down 2 to 3 times each game
and reload
because he just ran out of shit. And he'd be gone for like an inning and a half. And I'm like, you're just bleeding money. You're just bleeding money here.
Yeah,
what are you doing?
Brutal. They should have a guy coming through and reloading them guys. They shouldn't have to go themselves. That's fucking ridiculous. But you're right, he was.
It's not like I'm trying to brag like, oh, the Chicago guys came and we drank all this beer. Those KC motherfuckers could drink. So I got like, this is every game. Right. This guy's getting fucked up like this.
Exactly.
Poor son of a bitch.
All in all, a good time though. I mean, and thanks to Josh Nelson who organized a lot of that stuff. You know, we end up getting some credit for it, even though we don't organize a goddamn thing, just because we're handsome and we happen to show up. You know, but like the Sox Machine guys, credit to them for setting these things up. And you know what? None of us are getting paid. We're just set up a good time. Everyone come have a good time, and that's what it's all about. You know?
Yeah, I mean, when these trips, they're the Michael, the Vito Corleone of it. We're the Santino.
That's right. That's that's our role. That's absolutely what we do. We bring it. We're the party, as Jim often says about us, and that is a party.
This is what he means. That's what he means. That's what he means.
Absolutely.
All right, Beef. It's time for thank yous and GFYs.
Ooh.
Beef, who are you thinking of GFY?
I'm going to thank Joe Binder for doing the au jus this week. Very insightful conversation on building a brand, especially when you're not living in the same town as the brand you're building. You can't do a ground game or anything. Joe was very candid. I really enjoyed our conversation. It was a long time coming because we tried to get him on 3 things back during the pandemic in 2020. And afterwards he said, thanks for not giving up on me. I appreciate you having me on. So it was a good conversation. Joe, appreciate you. Thanks for coming on, my friend.
Yeah, that was a great episode. If you haven't watched it, go check it out. The au jus. It's on our channel. You can find it very easily. If you can't, then tweet at Beefloaf and ask him where to find it. He would be more than happy to tell you.
I'll send a link to you, baby.
I want to thank Josh Nelson and Jim Margulis for another great trip with those guys. That was awesome. I want to thank the people over at Timothy O'Toole's and everybody who came out. And, of course, we want to thank our guest tonight, Alex Rude. Great conversation, as always. I had a lot of fun. Until probably
hang on, one more thank you. I want to thank White Sox Dave for coming and doing the Timothy O'Toole's with us, man. I mean, it's always a blessing. David always comes up in the clutch for us when we need him, and we really appreciate this friend.
And he was willing to let us ask him some very invasive questions about specifically about Bridgeport.
And off camera about his showmates and which ones would jerk off at work.
That's true. That's true. We'll get into that some other time. Absolutely. But until about 20 hours from now, we'll see you then. Have a good night, everybody.